Speaking of the 2019 St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup Championship team, one of those members officially hung up his skates today, and I wouldn't say it's a surprise because he is coming off of a pretty devastating knee injury this year, but he did feel like he maybe could go another year or two. Defenseman Carl Gunnarsson announced his retirement today from the NHL, and he's going to go down in Blues history, Blues lore. His name is going to be remembered forever. Boom Boom Gunnarsson scored the game-winning goal in Game 2 of the 2019 Stanley Cup Finals. It was the first Finals victory in St. Louis history. It's a huge moment for the Blues and for Carl Gunnarsson, but not so much as huge as the story behind how he scored that goal. If you guys don't remember, in the third period of that game, Carl Gunnarsson had a great look on goal and hit the post. And in the intermission between the third period and overtime, he and Craig Berube were relieving themselves at the urinal in the bathroom. And what does Carl Gunnarsson do? He turns to his left and he goes, "Give me one more shot." And guess what happens in overtime? Carl Gunnarsson pots home the game winner to send the Blues home with a 1-1 series tie in that finals. I mean, the story is amazing. I mean, there were so many stories during that 2019 run, but that one right there obviously sticks out above the rest. Gunnarsson was a steady player, a guy that never expected to make it, played 12 years in the league, finally got a Stanley Cup ring. What's Carl Gunnarsson's legacy in your mind going forward now that he's retired from the NHL?
I mean, it's always going to be he was a Stanley Cup champion, but I think it's got to be that goal in Game 2 because the Blues don't win that cup if Gunnarsson doesn't make that goal in Game 2 and win that first Stanley Cup playoff game, finals playoff game. My tongue is tied tonight. That Stanley Cup Game 2 finals goal to win that. If he doesn't get that goal, they don't win that game. They don't win that cup. So, I mean, he's huge in that aspect. And then I think just the leadership that you've heard about him in the clubhouse, what a huge part of the team he was in that aspect as well. I think those are the two big things with him.
When a guy like David Perron tells you how important a guy like Carl Gunnarsson is to you, especially in the locker room, that right there shows the volume of what he actually means to a team, because you've got guys that will star on the ice, and then you've got guys that are the stars in the locker room, and not so much the bombastic blah, 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 but the guys that really hold the locker room together. And that's what a guy like Carl Gunnarsson does. And you know, for the Blues this past year, losing a guy like Alex Steen, losing a guy like Alex Pietrangelo, losing a guy like Jay Bouwmeester, and you can even throw in losing a guy like Carl Gunnarsson, even though he did play part of the season. Once you lose that kind of leadership and that locker room glue, things start to go haywire, and that's exactly what happened to the St. Louis Blues this year. And losing him now to retirement is going to be difficult. You just hope that the Blues find some way to be able to get a guy like Gunnarsson or a guy like Steen back into that locker room. And I know COVID kind of changed things up this year where people couldn't be in the locker room as much. This next season, if they can get those guys back into the locker room and really get that glue back, even if they don't play on the ice, you might see a much more improved St. Louis Blues team this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you about that. Isn't it crazy how those core guys that were kind of the leaders of that Stanley Cup team, they're all gone. You know, it's like it was the guys that were kind of the heart and soul, the leaders of that team that played Craig Berube's style. It's amazing how quickly all of those guys are not there anymore. And, you know, you heard Carl Gunnarsson say today that he was moving back to Sweden at the end of the summer. So I'm not sure he's going to be around the locker room a whole lot this upcoming season. But, yeah, you know, the Blues have got to find those guys. Hope that some of these young guys that had some experience with those veteran guys in 2019 last year, you know, a little bit of time this year, you hope that that rubbed off and they kind of step up and take that role, because that's what you have to keep that tradition, to keep that legacy, to keep that Blues hockey style that, you know, Berube wants. You need those guys to step up and fill those roles, and hopefully some of these young players, you know, can do that. The Colton Paraycos and the Robert Thomases and those guys have to take those next steps to be the leaders on this team.
if they're with this team next year. And that's the thing that's going to be rampant over the summer. You got the Matthew Tkachuk rumors, you got the expansion draft, lots of things going on, lots of balls in the air. Unfortunately, a guy like Thomas or Parayko could be gone from this team. So it's going to be a really interesting offseason for sure. You also can't forget that Oscar Sundqvist missed a good piece of this season as well. He's another one. He was a younger guy that was a core part of that Stanley Cup run. So having him back should be a huge, huge addition as well.
For new episodes, merchandise, and behind-the-scenes content, be sure to visit ToastedSTL.com or follow us on Twitter at ToastedSt. I'm the voice of the Blues, Tom Calhoun. Let's get toasted!